Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with DrinkABeerandPlayAGame, and today we are reviewing a another special one, Jim.
We're doing Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero. Let's get into it.
Jim, it can't be worse than Donkey Kong 64.
Let's get into it.
It's the best character in MK. It can't be bad.
Let's get it done. Released in 1997 and about 2 weeks before Mortal Kombat 4, this was developed and published by Midway. It came out on the PlayStation and the N64, which was handled by Avalanche Software. So when we talk about this game, we're mostly going to be focusing on the PlayStation version because that's the one with FMVs and that's one we played. It's pretty infamous, so let's see why.
PlayStation's also just better than N64.
Incorrect. Moving on.
Especially in this game.
Yes.
The graphics. Maybe this is a bit of a spoiler. This may be the highlight of the game. This was the last Mortal Kombat to use pre-rendered 3D models as your sprites. And obviously, if you haven't noticed by now, it's the first game that's just not a straight fighting game. So for an action-adventure game, they tried to give you different environments, and some of them look okay, like this wind god level. Like when you're outside and there's lightning and there's these rotating effects, it looks kind of cool. But then some of these other levels, like the sewers and the earth god, they just don't do it for us. They're very bland, very kind of muddy. And then you get to the pre-render sprite themselves, and I gotta say, there's actually a decent amount of detail. The only downside is most of the enemies you're fighting, they just reuse over and over. And while they look good, they get kind of generic. And then there's these weird robot bosses, which, I'm sorry, they kind of remind me of Rise of the Robots. They don't look that good. And Chinook is, whatever the fuck you want to call this. But outside of that, I think Jim and I, we didn't want to hate on it too much because, you know, it still has that feel. And come on, it's a game with FMVs, and you know we are suckers for FMVs. Some of the costumes are absolutely ridiculous, and then some of them look kind of decent. I know we're digging for straws here, but at the end of the day, we should probably give this 6s. But for some reason, I'm feeling like I want to add a point, so it gets 7s. And when it comes to boobs, when it comes to beers, I'm going to give it 2, because, it looks good.
Oops.
The sound. It's odd because no Mortal Kombat game is really known for its music, and this is another good case. A lot of the background music that is used kind of sounds like it was recycled from Mortal Kombat 3. And then there's some stages where there's almost nothing at all, so you only get background noise of like water dripping or the wind. There are the occasional enemy grunts, and yeah, they're nothing special. And then you come to the FMVs. And what can we say? They're goofy as hell. If I can use Jim's words, it's charming. It adds a little something to this game. Without it, it would probably be completely unbearable. But with the FMVs, and when you do get the stage music, it's not terrible. We had to give it 5s. As Jim would say, it gets the job done. It's nothing special at all. So when it comes to beer, I'm just going to add 1. Because honestly, anything that I can say positive about this game, I guess, is a plus.
Man, can't even give that to the N64 version. No FMVs. This score would be much lower.
That's why PlayStation's better.
In this sense. The control. So, I'll give it this. It controls like the Mortal Kombat game. So, this game is known for completely copying the fighting game system of control. High punch, low punch, high kick, low kick, all that. Block button. And throwing it into a side-scrolling beat-em-up, basically. So, in order to make this work in the sense of an adventure platformer, they had to throw in a turn button, so you could turn around. And it's extremely jarring at first. You do eventually get used to it, but you still have problems where certain combos will still turn you around at the end of it, like as you glitch. And just in general, it makes for a really goofy experience. But I guess it keeps the theme. And then comes the jumping. So, again, the control takes it from Mortal Kombat 3, but this jumping is just extra stiff. Now, it probably goes into the programming of the platforming in general, because some of these platforms you gotta jump on are really pixel perfect timing specific, and it's incredibly frustrating. And even if you move a little bit to the side or off, you're either completely missing or you're completely undershooting. It's pretty hard to judge. And I mean, you can grab onto sides and ledges, so that's new. But yeah, at best, it's passable. I mean, if you like stringing together combos to beat up enemies, that's cool. But so I gave it a 5 and Brian gave it a 4. He added the turn button more than I did. And when it comes to beer, I'm gonna add 3 beers. 1 beer for being a little too pure to the franchise, 2 for the old turn button, and 3 for the jumping. Alright, the gameplay. So, the positives first. And the biggest positive to come out of this is that it really does try to not only expand on the lore of Mortal Kombat, but just do something completely different from what you would expect. And at the end of the day, it is a side-scrolling, beat-em-up, platformer, RPG hybrid, because as you go through and kill enemies, you get experience points. And these experience points, they only go towards unlocking new moves. Like, you play as Sub-Zero, you expect to be able to freeze people from the start, and you can't until you gain the experience to do it. So, that's jarring. But as you go through, you do get his moves. Some are way more useful than others, some you basically never use. But it is what it is, though it does kind of suck that you never gain more health, you never gain more, magic power, we can call it. That's always is what it is. You just have moves that you unlock. So by the halfway point of the game, you've kind of almost unlocked everything depending on how much you die, which will be a lot, which I will get to. So you'll be cranking out the experience way before the end game. So the level design, let's get into that real quick. The level design is kind of cool, but they all follow the same basic thing. You go to a temple or you go to a level, you need to collect 3 of the things so you can unlock the thing to move on to the next level. And all of them turn out to be kind of maze-like, some way more than others, especially that damn water temple. But yeah, you're just basically going around and almost backtracking in a lot of spots to try and collect all the items to unlock the door or to teleport, blah 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 blah. And for the most part, at the end of them, you're going to come to a boss fight, which the boss fights are okay. So sometimes it's characters you know, sometimes it's characters that get used through the rest of Mortal Kombat, and sometimes it's a random ugly looking robot like Brian says. That's the closest I can get to the plus sides, because the bad side is the bullshit, and the bullshit makes up this entire goddamn game. You are going to die so many goddamn times to utter bullshit, you won't be able to explain it. Sometimes you'll be running and a floor will cave out from under you, and you die into a pit. Sometimes you'll be running and you'll run into a giant mallet that you didn't know was going to be there, because you're too zoomed in, so you can't either not see what's going to be coming ahead of you, or precious items, because you'll be looking all over the friggin' map, not realizing there's a ledge below you that you thought you were just going to die if you tried to go to. The enemy AI is all over the map. Some enemies will not touch you at all and just let you kill them. Some enemies will kick the living dog shit out of you again and again and again. Besides the ones that have launchers that are on very small platforms that you have to get to. Oh, and then back to the bullshit. Of course, there'll be times you'll be running, an enemy will punch you, you will fall backwards into a pit that will kill you instantly. So.
But Jim.
Yes, Brian.
At least the enemies have bounce back too, because you can get a lot of cheap kills if they're near ledges.
La-di-da.
Jim, I'm just trying to find the silver lining.
Oh, there's linings, all right. And then it comes to the boss fights, where when you fight the normal human bosses, they're not the worst thing in the world. You can, spam certain moves, but then there's the other goddamn robot enemy and this friggin' dinosaur enemy, where the only way to beat them is to completely just cheese. Whether it's by punching them in the dick and then kicking them in the head, or by just sliding at them, or by just lucking out and they glitch. Sometimes that's the only way you're going to do it. Look, we'll be honest with you, the only way we got through this freaking game was with the infinite life code. It's impossible without it. Or unless you're just a masochist who has played through it so many times, you know the every in and out of this game, which this game is not worth that.
Jim, can I also re-mention that it's bullshit? I thought the dinosaur would be your easiest enemy.
Oh no. That's probably the worst boss in the whole game.
Well, no, I know, because of the Ice Age, I thought he would, because Ice Age.
That was almost as painful as playing this game. Moving on. So, if I have to give one last little positive, Some of the cutscenes can change depending on which bosses you either kill or let live. So that's kind of cool. But beyond that, for the utter bullshit and the amount of times you're going to die getting through this friggin' game, we both gave it 3s. There's little silver linings here and there, but they do not a good game make. And when it comes to...
That wasn't English.
Oh, it was English enough. When it comes to beer, I'm going to give it 3 beers again. 1 for the bullshit, 2 for the bullshit, and 1 more for the bullshit. You're just going to need to drink and try and null the pain as you try to see the end of this delightful game.
At least with Sub-Zero, he'll keep it cold.
Get with the jokes!
The originality. What's weird is, you would think there's a lot here, because this game really did try to take Mortal Kombat in a different direction. And this is probably the first fighting game to take a main character and give him his own spin-off. Of course, later on, you would see some others, even in Mortal Kombat, do that again. But this was really a first attempt. And as Jim already alluded to, you also get the expansion into lore because you're having all the events happen before the original Mortal Kombat game. You're introduced to Shinnok and Quan Chi. Mortal Kombat has always been really good at expanding their lore, but this game I think is what really catapulted it there. Outside of that, we've seen bad side-scrolling beat-em-ups before. We've seen experience points, so nothing within the game mechanically we could actually give it points for. It's really about the shift in the type of game and what you can expect from it. And let's not forget, this is the first game with FMVs from Mortal Kombat. So when it comes to scores, we could only give it 4s. Didn't mean to rhyme there, it just kind of happened. So when it comes to beer, I'm only going to add 1. Maybe we are being a little too harsh. Maybe we should consider the originality a little harder, but this game sucks. There's no other way to say it. And with what it offered, it wasn't successful. So we can only keep it there.
So when it comes to replayability, I mean, there really isn't any. There's a couple cutscenes that can change in this story depending on whether or not you kill certain bosses or let them live. There's an unlockable, like, blooper reel at the end you can unlock if you do something things, but I didn't go through all that. And, yeah, there's no multiplayer, there's no different true endings to the story, so there's no reason to come back. It's just hard, so if you want to beat it, it's going to take you forever and a ton of tries. So, Brian gave it a 3, and I gave it a 2. When it comes to beer, I'll just give it 1 beer for throwing in a couple different cutscenes. Whatever.
All right, Jim, well, allow me to break the ice and just say...
Sucks!
Yeah, it sucks. I was trying to do a Mr. Freeze thing using the puns, ice, but, you know, you fucked that up.
Good.
Jim, you just need to chill.
Look, we already went through everything. The game's garbage. It's terrible. It was a cool idea that was handled poorly as hell.
Can I say this is probably one of the most disappointing games when I was a kid because I love Sub-Zero so much, and I rented it one weekend. I couldn't get past even halfway through the first level. I was so frustrated, returned it, never played it again until we did this review, and because of that game, I couldn't have any faith whatsoever in any other MK spinoff, and it actually kind of soured me on Mortal Kombat for a little bit. Like, I never played 4 until we did our review. It wasn't until PlayStation 2, and eventually I got Alliance or Deception. I forget which one came first. It was an interesting idea. I don't know if it was just rushed or what happened, but obviously it has a ton of shortcomings. Even me, a hardcore Sub-Zero fan, it was very hard finding anything good to say about this game.
Yeah, if you like to see a little bit more lore, then just look up the cutscenes on YouTube. It's not worth playing. But, like, and actually I'm with Brian. I rented this too, and I think everyone from our age group rented this at one point and went, oh my god, what the hell is this? So, thankfully, I got this in a $5 bundle from EB Games when that was going out of business, so I would not recommend spending any more than that, or playing it in general. Just look up the cutscenes, and I don't know why anyone would buy the N64 version, because it doesn't even have the FMV.
Yeah, so when it comes to scores, we both gave it 3s. The presentation and the graphics were the only kind of good point of the game. When we round everything together, it comes out to a 4. It's definitely below average. The only thing keeping that up a little bit, it was that subpar or above average presentation, I would say. But like Jim said, avoid it, even if you are a hardcore MK fan and you have a whole collection, unless you can find someone to give it to you, like sub $10. Don't buy it.
It's got boobs.
Does got that.
Good night, everybody.
Stay cool. Jim, chill out. When it comes to beer pairing, I of course had to go with the Mortal Kombat X Sub-Zero Imperial IPA. Just as a disclaimer, this beer is no longer available, but I have seen collectors who still have it, and if you're going to be brave enough to play this game, then you might as well be brave enough to drink an expired ass beer that you're going to pay too much for. I have had this beer before, and it is pretty good for an Imperial IPA. It's nothing special, but how could I not pair a game based on Sub-Zero with a beer based on him? So if you're feeling ballsy, grab a bottle of this, sit down, and be prepared to get frustrated. But remember to drink your beers and play your games responsibly. Cheers, guys.